Welcome. I'm Yusuf Azizullah. This is GBAC's annual 2019 video. 2019 will be disrupting boardrooms in many aspects. We will be covering them with trade wars going on, with global trade expected to be very slow. Welcome my guesters for this month. Janice Babiak. She is the audit committee chair of Wallgreens, which is a Dow 30 component, and it joined Dow this year, replacing General Electric. Janice is one of my oldest subscribers for more than 5 years, and she sits on European FTSE 250 and a Bank of Montreal. So she has really a very global perspective. We'll be discussing BREXIT, the strong dollar, trade wars that are occurring. We'll be also looking at cyber risks that are affecting boardrooms, and EU GDPR, one of the biggest data governance rules. Then I also like to thank Charlotte. She is the new chair of Institute of Directors of UK. She is also one of my oldest subscribers, and we'll be discussing inclusive growth, millennials, and also diversity in the boardroom. Agenda for this video: boardrooms really should be discussing slow global growth that is coming up next year. We'll be looking at capital markets year to date. We'll be during this year still with the fourth industrial revolution. There are countries and strategic markets that the board should be considering. That's the agenda, and then we'll go with the interviews. So board should really question CEOs on the strategy for reduced global growth. World Bank believes it's going to be about 3%, and while IMF Institute expects it to be 3.7%, my personal sense on this is somewhere in the middle would be 3.2, 3.3 mean would be really global growth, because these global institutions are on opposite ends of expected global growth for next year. But the data tells us last year foreign direct investment globally on the planet really went down 23% to just 1.43 trillion versus 2016. What else is affecting that we have to understand? According to the IMF, global growth has plateaued. It is no longer continuing. This is a source of October 2018, just last month. If you're looking at the screen, 2018 advanced markets, emerging markets, EU and USA were doing much better, and they are expected to go lesser for 2019. While advanced markets will grow 2.1, emerging markets will continue to be outperforming the rest of the planet, and USA will be going down to 2.5. Now, what's really factoring the global trade slowing down? Well, slower global growth in the G20 countries, volatile capital flows from here, extreme balance depth on global balance sheets of companies, oil price hikes, and trade wars disrupting global supply chains of your consumers between the US and China. It is disrupting supply chains for the G20 and other countries. On a per year basis, volumes of trade has also been going down. Just in October last month, we had the world equities throughout the planet lost about $5 trillion. That's wiping out a lot. And in November, as I write about year to date, the board should be questioning their CEO on these markets. If you're looking at it on the top left screen, it's S&P VIX, which is an indicator of volatility. It's at highest at 12.17. So the volatility is expected a lot for the S&P 500 for next year within the short term. Dow's, Nasdaq, S&P 500 all have pretty much erased all the returns that were gained earlier in the year. In Brazil, looking down the screen, basically we have a new populist president and markets are doing great. Countries that have started earlier in the year were down or have flipped. In a nutshell, Russia is gaining, Shanghai is a bloodbath, Nikkei, Japanese have lost also, the FTSE with the Brexit headaches losing a lot. Qatar, which has been a lot in the media with the war with its neighbor, with Saudi Arabia, it is actually outperforming the biggest market in Asia, 33%. If you look at in Africa, Tunisia has been outperforming a lot. Israel, one of the most innovative countries on the planet, is doing 10.2 year to date. What do we recommend? GBAC recommends the board should be really discussing these markets, how are our products and services being marketed in these countries, slow global growth, should be CEO and management focusing on. Even with this market, there are countries with fourth industrial revolution that are growing. GBAC is recommending Ireland, Ethiopia, Paraguay, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Vietnam. These countries are growing phenomenally, and looking at some data. Ethiopia, on a year-to-year basis, has been growing the largest on the planet percent, and IMF puts it 7.5. Ireland, the second largest foreign direct investments have been going to it in Europe. Bangladesh And Pakistan and Vietnam are really benefiting from fourth industrial revolution with a heavy tech sector there. Vietnam is really gaining with the trade wars, and they've opened their capital markets that any foreigners can come and buy their public stock. Just in the last 30 days, one of the biggest, largest global 2000 companies, a milk company, dairy company, has been by shareholders from Singapore. A group is really trying to purchase them full time. Why Pakistan and Ethiopia? Looking at these two countries, one in Africa, one in Asia, two things to understand. They have two new young prime minister and president. Both are really disrupting the status quo by putting peace in their countries and in the region. And they're really trying, using tech a lot. Pakistan trying to build a large dam, and they're doing social media for raising funds. And it's one of the green markets in Asia, 2%. So these are some of the markets that we are recommending. Welcome to GBAC. Today we have Jan Babiak, who sits on the boards of Wallgreens, Euro Money Institutional Fund, which is a FTSE 250, and also on Bank of Montreal. So Jan, first of all, thank you for joining us today. And,
Thank you.
Thank you. And you're one of my original subscribers from a very long time, more than 5 years. So I really appreciate your thought leadership in joining us today on a first lifetime video. For 2019, we have US trade wars going on, and it's going to be in much more full swing. On the other side, a very strong dollar. We have BREXIT, which you are very familiar with since you sit on European boards. So my first question to you of the day is, how do you see 2019 with all these challenges?
Well, I think 2019, like 2018 and 17 and 16 before that, we have a huge amount of uncertainty. And management in whatever country you're in, when you talk about a strong dollar, from where I sit, where, I have companies reporting in actually four currencies because of some private boards that I work with as well. It goes both ways for global companies. Some of that can be good, some of it can be bad, depending upon, your balance of trade and your balance of reporting in individual countries. So I think the main thing is to recognize that uncertainty, we're in a season of, huge uncertainty, and we have to be able to, continue to do business while waiting for big critical decisions, whether that's a Brexit or whether that's, something around regulation that may impact a particular sector or something like that. And it's just requires management to be more agile than ever and not to rely on what the past is. And we haven't even factored into that the fundamental shifts that are happening in digital that are just changing the whole landscape, that we're simultaneously dealing with all of these macroeconomic matters.
You absolutely bring a big part of it, the digital part of it. All the industries are being affected, and digital, Toys R Us, and so many companies have been completely disrupted and out of business. And so many industries with the artificial intelligence coming in and so forth. So you as an audit committee chair, you see things from risk perspectives on a day-to-day basis. Share some thoughts about digital. You brought it up a good point. What is important, and not why is it important? That's not even the question anymore. If you're asking why is it important, your business is long gone by now. So the question is, for 2019 and 20, how does digital should be in the minds of boards also still?
Well, I think there's been too much thinking about who's going to disrupt us. And the mindset for the future is how you think about how you're going to disrupt everyone else, including potentially yourself. And those companies, I think, that are brave enough to perhaps forego some of their very comfortable earnings as opposed to just watching it erode away will be the ones that prevail, because those who fight it will not be successful in the end. So stop thinking about how we're going to be disrupted and think about how you're going to disrupt. And you should go after not only your competition, but go after some of these smaller companies that are, thought of as the disruptors. And by going after them, I don't mean necessarily trounce them. You might want to buy them, so there's...
Merger acquisition in default. Good. So that brings a good part. Merger acquisitions, it's up a year. The 2018, we saw a lot of IPOs, a lot of companies come to public. I think 2019 is going to be shaken off with the trade wars, A lot of companies don't want to go public. 2018 was a thing. So that puts a little smaller of the pie. Bringing the other perspective that I wanted to discuss with you also was cyber risk. Companies are spending so much, 45 billion, 66 billion in 2018 just on cyber risks. FTSE companies are spending on EU data privacy, GDPR, the biggest governance law that's affecting boards. And you're pretty familiar with it. I'm sure you're seeing it as an audit chair. Companies spending millions of dollars just to bring it in-house to understand what's going on, the ramifications. Your thoughts on this, and what should be boards really thinking with these things?
I always find it very interesting when people compare what they're spending on cybersecurity with what someone when in reality, what we ought to be comparing it to is how much the threat vector is spending on this. But unfortunately, that information is not available to us. And so, you can you can be the greatest ice skater in all of Ecuador, but, I'm not sure that that's the competition you want to be thinking about. And I think that people too frequently are focused too much on comparators without really starting from what is our risk profile, what are our key threat vectors, because the threats are different for different companies. Some companies are more susceptible to state-sponsored. Some are actually more susceptible to their own employee base. And that would actually be a lot of the tech companies have, because you've got all these clever people, and within that you've got a certain amount of people who are dishonest or feel, dissatisfied with their employment. So I think part of the problem is we need to be thinking more about what we need to combat rather than thinking about what our percentage is relative to, quote, our peers.
I want to thank you for your participation in this video. Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time for it. Any last thoughts for 2019?
No, I probably, in terms of my thoughts for 2019, I think that my only thoughts would be to board members, and that, I think that the need for us to be constantly educated is critical, because when you're thinking about your careers coming up, it didn't have, blockchain as a big factor, or it didn't have, AI in the way that we know it now. And so I think that the most important thing for board members is to really think about investing in their own education, because it's not you can bring in a 25-year-old who knows that, because they don't have that broader business experience. So we have a responsibility to enhance the great experience we do have that will make a great contribution to a board with, understanding more up-to-date technologies and things like that. And then that's where we get the best answers, our shareholders.
Absolutely. I think continuing education and continuing your board governance education, learning yourself something new skills, absolutely, you nailed it on the dot. That's what GBAC, we like to bring new ideas, new thought process over the years and so forth. I have to thank you for not only being my subscriber, but also being part of my columns for so many years. So thank you. And this is the first live video, so I appreciate it. I hope we taught you some well. Kudos to you. You see governance from so many countries, the developed markets, US, Canada, UK. These markets are prime of the boards on the planet. And it's least to say that you see corporate governance really in its best form, and how to bring the best thoughts to your shareholders. I really am impressed by not only your board service, but your portfolio, but more importantly, as your desire to always be open-minded and add new ideas and so forth. So that's very few boards that I see on the planet, and I talk to a lot of boards, and few boards are open-minded. So you're definitely one of my open-minded boards that are open to new ideas. So I'm not worried about you. I always have great confidence, and I want to see you into more chairs and best 2019 and beyond. Absolutely, Jan. A pleasure, seriously.
Well, thank you, and I've really enjoyed following your work and seeing you move from strength to strength, and I wish you all the best for a great year to come.
Thank you so much. Welcome to GBAC. Today we're going to have Charlotte Valeur, who is the chairman of IOD, Institute of Directors of UK. Congratulations on your new position, and thank you for joining us. You are one of our original subscribers and a longtime friend, so I really welcome you and joining us for the 2019 video. Charlotte, lots of things going on the planet. We have populism growing in, we have BREXIT next year, we have also the currencies of foreign exchange are growing, changing a lot. Just to give you a little background to the audience about Charlotte also, you have a financial background. Talk about your experience over the last years and how did you become this position, role? Just a little bit about it.
I started in banking in 1982, so I have over 35 years of financial experience by now. I started being a board member about 12 years ago with a variety of different boards that I serve on, mainly because of experience within capital markets, trading environment, understanding hedging and derivatives and everything is valuable to pretty much all boards. So it gives me a good basis for going and serving on a variety of boards. That has led me to go into very much corporate governance and what's best practice and how should people follow it and why should they follow it. And the more troubles we get in the world, the more important it becomes that you have a set of good values and governance that you follow. Because corporate governance on its own isn't the holy grail to everything. If you haven't got proper values that leads into your business and the country you're leading potentially, then everything will be a bit difficult.
Basic question I have for you is 2019. How do you see that for board? What should boards be thinking as we plan for next year?
I think it's a very interesting time that we are in, and I think actually inclusive leadership and inclusive organizations and countries is very much the theme now. What is happening with the whole millennial and younger generations, they come forward with strong values, with expectation, quality, equal access, opportunities. If we as leaders don't embrace that fully and live our sort of both privately and professionally in that way, it's going to become difficult. We have to fundamentally change how we look at our organizations. We have to move from capitalism to valuism, where you actually lead your company and your organization in a way where you create value beyond just a financial value.
That is a very good point you brought, millennials joining the workforce and value. To them, environment is very important. To them, certain things, social causes are very important. Boards don't see this way. They think it's a fad. How do you explain boards that it's not a fad? This is the workforce. The statistics are saying they're joining the most. Go ahead, give us some thoughts on that.
I've just had some meetings with boards asking me exactly that question. Actually, can inclusiveness and growth go together, go hand in hand? Right. And in fact, if you don't have it, you will lose business. It's not even a question of do you gain business from it. If you're not inclusive, if you don't have properly diversified leadership teams and boards, certain companies will not contract with you anymore. Right. There's no way around it. You will lose business. I had a meeting with a large law firm today that was trying to help them getting that inclusiveness into their workforce because they were in fact losing business with people who would not contract with them because they didn't have a proper gender balance in the so that's just one measurement of values. But it's all about quality.
Good.
Yeah, this is bottom line, real stuff. Right. You need to be inclusive or you will lose business. Blackstone had it recently in the papers. Right. Some global investors will not invest with them because they don't have enough senior women. They don't have a balance in gender. Right. It's a real problem. It's a business problem. So it's not about why should we do this? It's why would you not do it?
Right. Why would you not do it? Absolutely. And if you don't do it, you're past history. Absolutely. Well, these are some of my questions. Some of the things that I would like, if you can just shed a little bit more light. You personally have been involved with you're a Board Apprentice founder, and could you share a little bit about that? Because I think that was one of the great reasons I think I picked you because of your great success in promoting diversity. So if you could share that light, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Board Apprentice started as part of the whole range of inclusiveness. Right. Me as a board member asked other boards, well, why don't we take an active part in developing tomorrow's board members? We can do that simply by reserving a seat at the table for someone who's board ready but hasn't got that practical experience and insight. We're in 8 countries now within 4 years. We have over 50 boards. We've got 100 ready apprentices sitting. We've got finalists. More than 65% of our apprentices become board members within a year of finalizing. So it makes a real impact. There's a very large social impact. There's also impact in providing boards session planning possibilities. So it works very well. We haven't launched in the US yet, but we would very much like to with the right people.
Absolutely. Let us know how we can help in the US. Love to help. Charlotte, I really appreciate your time, and over the years, governance been talking to you, and we can grant some good ideas back and forth. So I want to thank you for joining me in the video today. Just any other thoughts you want to add about 2019, about IOD future plans, and anything you can share with our audience? Something, really appreciate that. Any encouragement?
Well, of course, 2019, the kind of themes we do have on several of my boards is exactly that.
Right.
It's how do we adapt and change our organization to become one more agile, but to understand the future needs of businesses.
Right.
And that goes for construction companies, for membership organizations, for retail companies, universities.
Right.
I serve on all these kind of different boards, and we all have the same issue. In a sense, the millennials are disruption. We have known that for a while. Now it's time to embrace change. If we don't do that,
Right.
whole industries could be gone within the next 5 years.
Right. As a mother and as a father, what do you hope for your children in the next 5, 10, 15 years that boards need to be aware of? And what would you guys hope? Because at the end of the day, family is very important so what would you hope?
Because family is key. My children and my family are my first priority at all times.
Right.
I love the whole agenda of inclusiveness, and that is being pushed so hard everywhere.
Right.
Because what I want more than anything for my children is that they can look up and they can see the road is open for them to the top. If they want to put in the work, the road is open. No matter the color of their skin, their religious convictions, their sexual orientation,
Right.
anything that is anything else but their talent is going to keep that road open for them. My children are mixed, African, Danish. I don't want the color of skin to go against them. I have boys and a girl. I don't want my girl to be discriminated against in any way. That equal society where everybody is included and can bring the whole them to the table is what I want for them.
That is a great, outstanding, hopeful wish, absolutely, and I would love to see that also. And you have really the power and position to make some great changes for the future of business of great, not only UK but globally. The companies that you serve and the boards you serve. So I'm really excited to see your evolution into this transition into this role. So great, all the best from us, from me, and thank you so much for your time. Absolutely, have a wonderful new year. Thank you.
Thank you. So take care.
My GBAC offerings for this year, 2019, coming up year, would be I'll be still open for Red Diamond memberships for Global 500 shares if they're interested in networking with some of our members, Boardroom research, confidential research, and every month on a quarterly basis, I will try to have a YouTube video for you guys. Thank you so much and have a wonderful upcoming year.